Going live. Like I said, there's like a 20-second delay, a lapse between what we see on Zoom and what they get. So here we go. I'm gonna mute this so I don't get feedback on the sound. We are live. Going live. Like I said, there's like a 20. So we are live on YouTube right now. So hey. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So I'm gonna tile it so we can be visible. Gallery view. Yay. I have everyone on. Hi.
Hey, everyone.
Nice to see everyone.
Good.
Okay, so we said 12, it's 11:59, so we're gonna start.
Okay.
So first off, I want to say thank you to you guys. I know everyone is busy with school, work, everything. Thanks for juggling everything to be able to make this. And hello world. My name is Tony Fascison. I'm a coach and an author and a mental health advocate. And today I have with me a wonderful panel of youth leaders. On this panel, you have dancers, you have singers, you have thespians, you have published authors and published poets and award-winning poets. We have people who sing, who play musical instruments. We have such people in student leadership, people in leadership in the communities, influencers. So we have a very versatile group here today. And we are going to address the issue of race from their perspective. We're all aware of what's going on in the nation right now, and it's troubling times. And I want to start off by apologizing. I apologize on behalf of my generation and the generations before. We ought to have fixed this a long time ago. I apologize to the millennials and Generation Z, which I have both represented on this forum. And so I'll just throw it open. I'll start with you, Tammy. With me here, I have Tammy Akinsanya, I have Joshua Olujide, I have Taga Ojegun, and I have Thomas Fascison. And I'll start off with you, Tammy. How are you coping? How are you handling this right now?
I think it's weird. I think my emotions are going up and down. I was actually talking to my sister about it. I think over the weekend, it was kind of all hitting me at once, but I was still like able to kind of process my emotions. Whereas I think yesterday was the first day where I was overwhelmed with emotions. I don't know if it has to do with my with work addressing it. So my job addressed it internally yesterday. So I think having that discussion like in corporate America, it kind of, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it kind of like triggered my emotions. Whereas like when I was having it with my family and my friends, it was just like, we're all processing it together. I guess it just became 10 times more real when I realized like other people had something to say, and I didn't know I even wanted to talk to them about how I felt, but everybody was kind of looking at me as to see how I was, and I just like that. So yesterday was hard, but I think today has been a little bit better, just trying to process everything.
Okay. What about you, Joshua? How have you been processing it?
Honestly, I don't know. It's been hard. I'm not gonna pretend like it's been easy. I've been feeling really just drained and tired lately. Just at the fact that it's like a lot of my friends who like, it's people who I thought were my friends who like don't seem to care. Like this is like, especially if they're white or like just not black, like this is just like an issue that doesn't pertain to them, so they don't see a reason to like speak up against it. And like I've been talking to so many people this past week and just educating them on a lot of like the issues and the core problems of the issues. Like it's my job to educate them. They should look it up for themselves. But I have been doing a lot of that. But I've just been feeling really tired and just drained lately, but still like motivated to like do whatever I can to solve this issue. But yeah, it's been a lot lately.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Tega?
I agree with Temi and Josh. It's like it's been a lot, you know, a lot of feeling of anger, and then you just feel drained, and like just like them, I've been talking to a lot of people as well, and there's just so many different stances, so many different views, and I've been trying to educate a whole lot of people, but also I've been trying to educate myself as well. Not just going off of social media, not just going off of what I see on Twitter or Instagram, but I've been trying to do a lot more research, on my own. And talking to my friends yesterday, there's a lot of things that we can do that can benefit, everybody. And it just hurts whenever you see, those people on the media or those people that are ruining the protests, wearing certain shirts or representing something that's against everybody. And it's just really draining to see that. And then anger comes in, and it's just a whole lot of different emotions. So it's just been really hard. Again, I've been trying to educate myself a lot, but even that, because looking at media, you don't know what's real and what's not, and it's just so much information coming at you at once. So it's just really hard to process everything. So yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thompson.
Um, I think I've just been like really overwhelmed these past few days. Like not just with all the information, but just because like I'm the type of person that I like to do whatever I can to help. So I've just been like pushing myself into these like organizations or into like spreading information, not realizing that like the more I do that, the more like stressed and overwhelmed I get. And like I haven't really been sleeping well lately. So like I don't know. It's like it's not like this is different because this has been happening for a really long time. But I feel like just right now it just hits different because I don't know. I've just never felt like this before.
Okay. Thanks so much for you guys giving me your how you have been handling it. But I want to ask, how have your friends, like those in your circle, both those who are directly impacted, as in being people of color, and those who might be of a different race, have you seen? Let's start with people of the same color. How have they been processing it amongst themselves? Is it all anger? Have people been able to distance themselves from it to process it accurately, or how has it been? Anyone want to go first?
I can start.
Yeah.
I would say for me, all of my friends, I guess all my Black friends in general, I think we all have had the same type of response where it's like we're all kind of feeding information. And then I also have friends who are like out protesting, like doing their groundwork. I also have friends who are trying to do their best to like collect information, like kind of like how I have been trying to collect information and spread it out. But I think what has been like the same for everyone is like a lot of like pain, and it kind of, I think at first it was just like, here we go again, but now it's like, no, I actually really want to see a change this time. So I think a lot of my friends, I'm noticing it's kind of similar to, I think for me when, because I think a freshman in college, like 2012 or 2013 when Trayvon Martin happened. And I remember then it was like a fire in everyone. And I haven't seen that since now. So I think it was like everybody was starting to feel like, oh, this happens all the time. But this is the first time I would say that everyone, there's like a fire, like let's keep going rather than it being like, we're going to talk about it for a day or two. So I would say a lot of my friends seem to be on the same page on that end.
Okay. Anyone else?
Um, for me, yeah, it's for all my Black friends. It's been just a lot of different feelings, and just one thing just that should be known is that like as a Black person during this time, there really isn't an incorrect way to feel. You're like 100% entitled to feel however you want to or need to feel right now, whether it's sorrow or anger or disappointment. It's just been hard on a lot of us. A lot of my friends have just disconnected from all social media and just from the internet in general for the past few days, which I completely understand. It's like Tega said, it's a lot of huge influx of information and it can be very overwhelming. Some of us have unplugged, some of us are just spreading information, and yeah, we're just all doing the best we can.
Mhm. Second.
I totally agree with Josh. A lot of my black friends, there's those. I mean, although all of us are acting, we're all on the same page, like Temmie said. A lot of us are acting like a little bit differently. Like Josh said, some people are getting away from social media, period, and a lot of us are just confused. And then there's people that are also very angry. And like Temmie said, there were a lot of people that are outside. Howard County doing the groundwork there, doing the protests. A lot of them were angry. Um, and yeah, just people, there were people that decided to just get away from social media, period, because it's just a lot. And I know a lot of people that are going through like a lot of like mental issues right now. They don't know how to react, they don't know what to do. And, but yeah, but pretty much we're all on the same page. We all feel the same pain. So yeah.
Mhm. Thompson.
I just think like a lot of my friends are kind of like a mix of disappointed and angry. And a lot of them are kind of like disappointed in their white friends or their non-black friends that aren't really like as vocal about it or aren't really like caring about the issue as much. Like I know a lot of them have like expressed their kind of frustration because it feels like their white friends or their non-black friends aren't really like realizing that this is like a big issue. So a lot of people are telling me about that.
Okay. Well, the next thing I want us to talk about is what do you see as the way forward? What are some of the things that you think should be done? Either we can start from a personal level, either as a Black person or another race, or on the family level. What should we do as individuals? What should we do as families? What should we do in our communities? What should the government be doing? And what do you think law enforcement should be doing at this time? So those are some of the areas where I'd like us to talk. So, starting from on an individual basis, what do you think? We talk about the power of one, but what do you think one person can actually do? What difference can one person make?
Um, I mean, if I can go. The way I see it, what this as a black person, what you can do is just really just talk to your white friends, see if you can get them just to understand the way privilege and power works in this country. Because at the end of the day, black people can scream and chat about these issues all we want. Black people only make up like 12% of the U.S. population, and like white people, we obviously know are the ones who hold the power in this world to actually change anything. So we just really need, if we can get just the white people in at least in our even in just our personal lives to understand how privilege works and how power works, how power dynamics work, and how we can get them, if we can get them to understand, then and literally not only understand but empathize with us and actually want change themselves, then they can maybe they can go off and have conversations with their parents, and the parents of people our age are some of the people who are in power, who control these systems. So that in turn could potentially have a domino effect, and we could start seeing like reforms and changes in our world.
Mhm. So,
Yeah, I Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say like I agree with Josh. Like I feel like just like showing them how many ways like they might have exhibited racism covertly or like they might have like permeated that. I feel like just showing them that like racism isn't just like saying the N word or like calling someone like a derogatory slur. Like there's many ways you can be racist like covertly and many ways that like they done in the past. So I feel like just educating them and making sure, like Josh said, having conversations with their parents because it's probably their parents that taught them those racist behaviors, and that's where it all started. So just like making them aware.
Okay. For Tega and Tammy, let's look at it on the family level. What impact do you think we can make on the family level?
Okay, so I can go first.
Mhm.
Um, on a family level, I believe that just educating ourselves and talking to each other, making sure that we're okay. I feel like that's the first step. You know, it can be it can be very weird, having the conversation with our parents, with them informing us, what not to do and what to do in certain situations. And it can be, very uncomfortable at times, the fact that we even have to have that conversation. But I feel like just having that conversation in general, that'll help, not only looking at what to do whenever we're pulled over by a police officer, but what to do whenever somebody else is going through, a racial situation, not just to stand by, but to be the solution to the problem, to stop it right then and there. Um, more conversation we can have could include, um, reporting it to somebody if you see anything pertaining to a racial situation, talking to the right adult, talking to the right official in your school or anything like that. And I feel like just having that conversation within your family and knowing where everybody stands with it, you know, um, being mindful of where everybody is. I feel like that's really, really, really important. So yeah.
Okay.
I agree with Tega. I think education is like where it first starts, but also realizing that you have to do education outside of what we're seeing in school because it's not even touching the iceberg. I also think acknowledging, even as Black people, acknowledging like let's say like you're a middle class or upper class, or I don't know, middle class or upper class Black person, acknowledging your privilege and seeing how, like, remembering what it's like to not have, or remembering that at the same time we're all Black. So I think a lot of times what happens with Black people, really, since we're talking about families, is we might start to believe that we don't have that problem anymore. We don't have that struggle anymore because we're walking around with like the people of different races. We're in school with in a majority white school, or we go to a PWI. So I think realizing that at the end of the day, this is your struggle as well, and acknowledging that, like, no matter what you are, one, it's still Black, two, it's your fight to fight as well. So that way we don't ever feel like we've come above something or we are better than anyone, really.
Mm. Yeah, piggybacking on what you said, that was one of the reasons they said it ended well for that bird watcher, the guy, because he was a Harvard graduate, he was top class, top tier, so that worked in his advantage, and it shouldn't matter your class, it shouldn't matter your income bracket. Um, it should be the level playing field for all. So so we've talked about it on an individual level, we've talked about it on the family. So what do you want to see the government do, starting from the localities? Because the truth of the matter is, everybody can talk about the federal government, but all these cases are not being prosecuted at the Supreme Court level. Everything is local. So we need to start from our localities. We need to start from our district judges and our district courts and all that. So what would you want to see? What is it? Because there's so much distrust right now. So even if the government comes and says whatever, what change do you want to see before you can actually believe all the rhetoric about we're going to change this, or we're going to switch this, or we're going to switch that? So what will convince you that we're moving in the right direction from the government?
I think like two things. Like the first thing, I really just want to see like people kind of like taking voting more seriously. Like not just like on the presidential level, because I feel like people just see like Biden and Trump and feel like it's like the lesser of two evils. But like your mayor, your governor, your county executive, like those people are the real people that like if so you get stopped by the police, like those are the people that are gonna like affect you and whatever they believe is gonna affect you. So I feel like as Black people, we really need to make sure we vote for people that actually care for us and care for our lives and would like support us in that situation. Like recently with George Floyd, I think they recently removed the DA Mike Freeman from his case because he wasn't prosecuting Derek Chauvin on the right charge. And now they have Keith Ellison. So just like that type of thing, like we need to start voting for like the right people. And then the second thing, I think that with the localities like police officers, they should have like a standard of like police training all around, because it shouldn't be like some police officers actually adhere to the rules and don't like prosecute Black people for no reason, but then other police officers, they only have to do like 8-week training and they're given a loaded gun. So I feel like there really just needs to be like some concrete like actual like rules for each police officer, because I know in Howard County Like each police officer has to have a degree for military service. They have to get psych evals every year, and they have to have extensive training. But that might not be the same to like another state or county. So I feel like just having like kind of like regulations across board would be good.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely agree. Um, and oh, jeez, in terms of the police, there's so much change needed. One of the main problems of that is just like Thomasin said, is it training. One interesting fact is that the fact that like policemen, when they're being trained, they receive 8 hours in training on de-escalating situations, but they receive like 129 hours in like weapons and firearms training. Like that's far too much. Like, and they're taught to like not just react, but like act before a threat even arises, which, as you've seen, is a horrible way to be taught how to protect this country. And honestly, the fundamental problem with the police and the people, some of that people, a lot of people are misguided about is that they believe that police are like, meant to protect us. But like, if you actually do your research, that was never the original intention of the police. They were not created as a force to protect the American citizens. Some cops probably do from time to time. That's what government's told us. But like the true origin of the police it really was to keep people like us in check, to make sure that we don't act up. So the police, whether or not it's just getting rid of it completely or just a massive reform in the way they're trained and how they operate, how they view dangerous situations. But yeah, no, there definitely needs to be some change or even just full on replacement of what we understand now as the police force. And again, like Thomas said, you should definitely vote at your state or local level because it doesn't whoever the president is, they're not going to affect your one case in your county. So your county executive, your mayor, your governor, those are the ones who are going to have the final say in what happens to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with Josh. I was having this conversation with my friend yesterday. The way I was looking at it, I was looking at it from more of an education standpoint. And I feel like the first step is educating yourself. And I feel like a lack of knowledge is what is killing us, right now. And I was trying to kind of dumb it down and make it more simple. I was doing my research, and for example, in elementary schools, in middle schools, in our history books, they teach us about American history. And you don't find out until later that whatever they were teaching us in those books was actually incorrect. For example, one of the first things that you learn in American history is Christopher Columbus, the fact that he so-called discovered, the New World. But in fact, he thought that he found a shortcut to India, but that's not what happened. And the Europeans induced a name upon, those people, and that was wrong. The history books don't tell us that Christopher Columbus completed mass genocide to those people. He raped those people. If they didn't conform to Christianity, he did a lot of terrible things to that people. Yet we have an entire day that is dedicated, called Columbus Day in America. And I believe that whenever we grow older, like that's not the time we should get that information. I found this out when I was in high school. They've been teaching this to us ever since we opened the history book. And I believe that that's the first step, educating ourselves what is right in American history. Looking at Abraham Lincoln, yes, he is one of the most popular presidents we've had in the United States. But looking at what he did, he's known as a president that freed the slaves, quote unquote, through the Emancipation Proclamation, right? But looking at that, we can't forget that Abraham Lincoln owned slaves himself. He still owned slaves, and the fact that he's known as a president that freed the slaves, how does that pertain to the entire Civil War that happened after the fact that that proclamation was, proclaimed? And it's just like wrong information that is being put out there, and we're not learning what is correct. So that whenever we get older, we're believing that America is this amazing place, the land of the free and the home of the brave, like we say in our national anthem, and that's wrong. So I believe educating ourselves is the first step, and I feel like the government has to do a way better job of teaching the history, to our little kids, starting off in elementary school, because that's one of the first things that we learn about. So I feel like that's one of the first steps, and it's it's gonna change, a lot of lives once we know the real information rather than just sugar coated um, uh, American pride type of history when that's not really what happened. So I think that's one of the first steps, and that's really important.
Yeah. And it's not even like just like it's not even it's more than just teach us the right hit. It's not even to just teach us better. Just teach us what actually happened because like a lot of what we know and believe to be true right now is really just government propaganda. And it's scary to think that the U.S. government would just feed its citizens propaganda, but like they truthfully have been, and they've been doing it for centuries, and we've believed it as a fact now, and we have to unlearn a lot of that propaganda.
Yeah, I read it somewhere that history is written from the perspective of the winner.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So it's whoever's in charge that writes history. So that's one of the things we have to keep in perspective. Tammy, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like definitely agree with everyone on the call. I just feel like if anything, and just being like really honest, I feel like everything that we're talking about would require like dismantling like the entire system in order to start over again because of how like messed up it is. And I also think it would require, I think the reason why it's so easy to sugarcoat everything, like it's so interesting now that like even slavery was sugarcoated. If you think about it, like when I was in second grade, third grade, I was like, wow, that sucks, but they freed us. Like, it's great. Like you don't really understand the magnitude of what was going on. It just feels like, oh, they were there, like, you know what I mean? Like servants or something. So I think the problem with the US is like, or I guess with America in general, is that we don't want to acknowledge what happened. So it's almost like it didn't, And I think the more stuff like this happens and the more everyone gets educated, the more we all grow up and learn and start reading for ourselves and start like actually understanding what really happened. It's just going to become more and more of a fight on our end. But it's like, if no one's acknowledging what's happening, that's what I feel like. That's why it's exhausting for me, because it's like we're all saying the same things, but if it's not acknowledged by the government, we're all going to be in this spot and everyone's going to be like, everything, that picture of like the fire, and it's like everything's fine. That's just what we're always going to be, because no one's acknowledging what's really happening. And I think that's why everyone's so upset, because it's like the system in general was never made for Black people to prosper. So I think even when we do, like we see, I can't remember, I feel really bad for not remembering, but I can't remember the name of the guy who the woman came into his house and she killed him. And then because she thought it was her house and all that stuff. And he was like obviously in like the nicest of homes and all that stuff. And then even Breonna Taylor, I guess that's even a more like very recent. So I think it just shows that like everyone's like, oh, well, I think sometimes for me, what bothers me is in any of these cases, yeah, we're seeing a lot of people acknowledging that Black Lives Matter. But in any of these cases, you see those people saying, well, what if they did this or why didn't? And I feel like for Black people in this country, it's like always a but, like, oh, well, why didn't you? Why? And I really can't wrap my head around the fact that like death, like that's never the answer. So for people to be like, oh, well, maybe if they would have listened to the cops, all this stuff, it's like, it shows that it's automatic for people to assume that Black people are in the wrong. It's automatic to assume that like whatever is happening, we had to have done something to provoke it. And that's what's like, I think, terrifying. And that's why I feel like the dismantling of the system, really not trying to sound negative, but it's like, it's almost like, will it even ever happen? Because it's not going to benefit them, it would benefit us and people of color. So why would they dismantle it?
No, yeah.
That's another thing. It's a lot of times people say the system is broken, but the system is not broken. The system is accomplishing what it was created to do.
Yeah, it was never.
So it's not really an issue of fixing the system. It's an issue of uprooting this and starting anew.
Yeah.
And in order for that to happen, which is something I have been shouting for a while now, to change anything, you have to be at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time for us to mobilize. And when I say mobilize, find the protests and all that, yeah, they create awareness and stuff, but we need to mobilize from the inside. We need to sit down and talk to ourselves. We, the adults, need to get together. We need to, each of us, examine ourselves. Who's going into what? Who's running for what? Start at the local level. Start from your children's PTA. Start from your homeowners association. Be out there. Be a face. Be an influencer. I mean, with social media now, you can influence people on the other side of the globe, not to talk to people in your community. We need to begin to talk to you kids. You kids need to talk amongst yourself. Who's going into government? Who's going into the legal profession? Who's going into law enforcement? Who's going into the economy? I mean, different things, into business, different areas, into education, into healthcare. A lot of things we're complaining about. Even this disparity in healthcare, which is one of the reasons why we have such a, I mean, we are like 14% of the population, but we're like 30 something percent of people dying from COVID. And it's all because of this healthcare disparity. Where are the decision makers in healthcare that are people of color? Yes, we have tons and tons of physicians and nurses, and yes, but how many people are the administrators? How many people are the administrators of hospitals? How many people work or are the CEOs of the insurance companies? So a lot of things that it's like we've been, because of the way the system has been set up, we've been taught to serve. We've been taught to be the followers, but not the leaders, not the decision makers, not the ones determine the way society or things are gonna be run. So I'm appealing to your generation. I think a lot of my generation is already a lost cause, but I'm appealing to your generation. You guys need to put your thinking caps on. You need to determine which mountain are we taking? Which area are we facing? 5 years from now, you guys are going to be the ones there. 10 years from now, you guys are going to be the ones there. So you need to begin to mobilize yourselves. It's like I don't want to use the word they, but it's like the culture has pushed us people of color towards entertainment. Oh, you're good enough for us to watch you run around with the ball, to sing, to dance, to titillate us, but don't speak, don't think, just go with the flow. But the time has come to an end. And in this next season, in this next phase, we need to be strategic. We need to be very, very smart. And that's one of the things I keep telling people. You do not put out all your marbles. you need to be very strategic in how you plan things. You need to be very smart. You need to understand the terrain. You need to understand the fact that the system is not set up to profit us. So we're going to have to find a way, even in the midst of this system, to make it work for us, while getting to the place where we can change the system. So I think that's where we should be pulling our resources now. So we're not just dissipating energy, running all over the place, and 3 weeks from now, something else comes up and everybody's forgotten and moved on. I mean, since they started, who's talked about COVID-19 anymore? It's not like it's over. It's still out there, but it's like everyone's attention has shifted. So all it needs is one new thing to come up, and this will become history. We cannot allow that to happen again. We've gone around this mountain long enough. It's time to move forward. So just before we round up, does anyone have any last words?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you were talking about generations because as I was talking to my friends yesterday, that's what we were talking about. You know, as you were saying, this is how the system was created to be. It's not broken, and I feel like that's a really big misconception that a lot of people have. And I believe that one great example that my friend gave me yesterday was that let's say I like white bread and somebody else is trying to convince me that bread is better than white bread. You can't change my mind about that. Same way with, for example, white people. This is how they created the system. This is how they believe that it's going to work. There's through history, you can see that we've gone through a civil war. We've gone through many presidents. We've had a black president. We've protested, we've rallied, everything. They still don't care that because we can't change whatever's in their mind. So I believe that in order to change that, we have to target the next generation. We have to educate ourselves, educate our children, so that the next generation, this will be all like radicalized. And I believe like that's like a really important step. I always say you can't lead a horse to the faucet if it's not thirsty. No matter what you do, no matter what you try, if that horse isn't thirsty, there's no way you're gonna move that horse to the faucet. So I believe that the one thing we have to do is target the next generation, put things in place now that the next generation will be like, oh, okay, now I understand this or now I understand that. Put things in place where, for example, if unruly police killings occur, there's immediate, prosecution. There's something immediate that happens. Stopping the possession of weapons of mass destructions of police officers. If they're put to enforce the law, there's no reason to be carrying around, extreme levels of power. Like there's absolutely no reason for that. And history shows that they're not even using, these weapons the right way. They're not using them to enforce the law. They're using it to kill innocent people. And I feel like that's one of the things that have to change. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I can go next. Yeah. Again, just to echo what everyone else has already said. Just again, a improvement of government in general, and something that Temi said earlier is the fact that just acknowledgement from the government, because to this day, it has never been like the government has never ever issued an official "I'm sorry" to the Black community for slavery. They have never ever publicly apologized for that, and they apologized for other things like the Japanese internment that happened during World War II. The government issued a public apology and paid reparations. But this is never a wrongdoing that the government has officially acknowledged and owned up to. And like I said, the system was never made for us. Like, and every new system that was made during the creation of the country was made to work against us. So the intertwining of those systems is like so tight that like a few weeks of protests and Instagram posts isn't going to solve that. It requires complete uprootment. It is for a lot of factors, and again, like I said, it's really up to like it is up to the next generation. Something I would just think. So one thing that I would joke with my friends, I bring me recent compliment. It's kind of sounds kind of morbid, but like one of the things that just comforts me is the fact that like the people in currently in power now are old and they will die eventually, and eventually we will come up and take their positions, hopefully with new open minds to make their children and our children's children make sure that they can live in a much safer world.
okay. Tell me.
I agree with everybody. I agree with everything. I think also, I don't know if you guys saw when in the protests, those two, like another upper class, so Spelman and Morehouse college students, they were in their car going home and then they broke their window, they tased them, all stuff. I was watching the news today where they've already been, like the cops had already been charged, and apparently like a union against for police were upset, and they said sometimes things will sit for 4 years before it's even touched. Why was this prosecuted so quickly? And they were upset about that, saying that it's because of the news coverage. But I feel like that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like you are upset that these cops were, I don't even know what happened to them. I don't know if they were fired or they were arrested, but you're upset that they no longer have a job because you're like, oh, well, sometimes it sits forever. But I think that's the main problem. Why does it sit forever? And the reason even why George Floyd is being it's moving so quickly is because everyone's asking questions every single day. So I feel like it just has to be taken more seriously. Like someone's dead, let's figure out, like, let's prosecute or let's arrest, like, let's figure out what we're going to do right now, rather than it being like when I heard that, I don't know why it bothered me so much, because it was almost like the police were upset that the wrongdoers were being charged because they're police. You get what I'm saying? So police are not like superhumans. Like they should be treated the same way. You would arrest me if I killed someone on the street. So why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, stop treating them like they're superior, because they're not, and like they're superhuman, because they're definitely not. So then that way we can actually realize like, okay, we're all civilians at the end of the day. So if something is happening, let's handle it the same way we would if it wasn't a cop. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I really like what Tammy and Josh are saying. Like, I feel like we just really need to hold like not only the government accountable, but like the police accountable. Because like a lot of people, like I've just seen on the internet, they're like, well, not all cops are bad. Like you can't say that, but it's like you can't, or like they'll use the symbol of like there's like a few bad apples, but it's like you can't have like a few bad apples with people who have loaded guns. Like you just can't do that because people's lives are at risk. So I feel like we all just need to like hold the police accountable. Like, although humans aren't perfect, but don't be a police officer if you know that you cannot control yourself in that type of situation. Because that's just putting American lives at risk for no reason.
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely agree. This one joke I saw about that was the fact that like some jobs, like the whole few bad apples thing is like it's the joke was like it's like so it was like if an airline told you most of our pilots like to land, but some of them crash every now and then, it's okay. Would you fly the airline? No, you wouldn't because did like it doesn't like my
Mhm.
mom something that my mom told me was that like it doesn't matter if a pilot has flown 49 perfect flights. If they crash on their 50th and kill 160 people, you're never going to trust that pilot again. And it just reminded me of this interesting thing that because a lot of people are calling to just like abolish the police completely, which I am in support of. But like people often wonder like, okay, if there's no police, how will we protect against crime and stuff in the country? It's lofty, but like there is a way. Basically, the way it would work, you would fund you basically you would kill crime at the source because no one criminals don't just pop out of thin air. People this way people are raised. People are raised to grow up and they decide to commit crime, whether robbery or violent crimes. So you'd fund things that are in the country that are currently very underfunded, like education, mental health resources, food banks, stuff like that. So it's so like in a theoretical future, over the course of time, by slowly defunding the police and funding these more, you're not just getting what it wouldn't just be as simple as getting rid of cops, but it would just be like slowly making the police unnecessary, like a
Redundant.
force that you don't even really need
Yeah,
anymore.
especially I agree a lot with that because like especially when you look at like the militarization of America, like how quickly they got all of these like national guards prepared and like all these things, but like they couldn't get enough masks for like nurses. It just seems like America's like priorities like with funding aren't where they should be. I
Yeah.
think.
Mhm. So thank you all so much. This has been an awesome, awesome experience. I really enjoyed myself. And so some of the things we've talked about, let's just recap. Um, I'm thankful that you guys are coping in your way. Um, like some of the different ways you talked about some of your friends coping. Every now and then, we all need to take a break because we have to realize the fact that we've already had like 11 weeks, like 12 to 11 weeks with the coronavirus pandemic and all the stress, all the pressure, all the anxiety and the fear and the uncertainty from that. So we're already not really in a good place. That's why there's so much in quotes overreaction because people are already on edge. So we need to do whatever it takes to secure our own mental health. We need to practice self-care. If what it takes is for you to shut down everything for a day, do it. If it's not to enter into any discussions about it for that day, shut down the news, do it. Just do whatever it takes to get yourself to a good place. And we've also talked about some of the things that we want to see. We want to see some acknowledgement from the government. We need to want to see some change in the government. Some of the things that I think for law enforcement, they should be held to a higher standard than other professions, because just like the medical profession, your doctor has to be board certified. Most doctors, most hospitals, for the doctor to have privileges in that hospital, they have to be board certified. So it's not a case of I graduated as a physician 30 years ago and I just keep going on. Every 3 years, they have to be recertified. They have some exams they have to take on an annual basis. I don't see any reason why the police force or law enforcement should be any less. They, first of all, to even get in, it should not be for the rejects. It should not be for those that could not make it anywhere else. So it shouldn't be a last resort. They have to have certain training. They have to pass some examination. They have to get certified. That certification should be renewed on an annual basis, in addition to a psych evaluation on an annual basis. Every report against an officer needs to be treated seriously, documented, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And there was something I saw a few days ago, which I totally agree with, that if every police settlement was being funded out of their retirement fund, a lot of this nonsense will stop because it's coming out of our taxpayer dollars. So it's not even costing them anything to do all this police settlements. We are paying for the police settlements, not the police force. But if it was coming out of their own pocket, nothing speaks louder than money to a lot of people. So if they know that this thing we're doing, then each one of them will police the other. Like someone said, you can say, oh, there are 2,000 cops altogether, and out of the 2,000, only 10 are bad cops. But if the remaining 1,990 cops are silent, you actually have 2,000 bad cops. So it's an accessory to the fact is as guilty as the perpetrator of the act. So we need to, all that covering for one another needs to stop. Wrong is wrong, no matter whoever is doing it. Nobody is above the law, especially the law. So those are some of the things that we want to see. And that's one of the reasons why we need to get into those places to make those decisions. Because quite frankly, what was going on with George Floyd, if 3 cruisers had shown up with African-American policemen, they would have stopped 4 guys, even if they had to physically restrain them. So those are some of the things that we need to put in perspective. So thank you all once again. And these are some of the things we're going to start implementing on the local level, on individual level in our families. We need to educate our kids. We need to educate everyone around us, because a lot of people, they just don't know. Like Tammy said earlier, a lot of, even within the Black community, there are some people that they're so sheltered. So in all essence, they are no different from those of other races that don't get it, because they have never experienced it in their entire life. No one in their family or around them has experienced it. So it's almost like living in an alternate universe. They don't get it. But as we continue to educate one another and create awareness, then we'll become more aware and be able to actually effect change. Like we said, the system is not broken. It's doing exactly what it was created to do. We need a new system. So thank you all for taking time out. I know some of you have to get back to work, some to class and all that. And it's been a wonderful time. We should do something again soon. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Tega. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Thomason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.
All right.
Bye. Bye.